Hey friends, David Miller, Los Angeles-based multimedia artist and educator. I know that AI has been the big conversation topic of the year in creativity. There's a lot of people losing their jobs because of AI. There's a lot of people picking up AI tools and making cool new stuff that they were incapable of making before they had access to these tools. And as much as I don't want to see people lose their jobs, I think that there's been a lot of technology in history that people go up in arms about and act like it's the sky falling, whether it's digital photography, regular photography as a concept, the printing press, digital illustration, ebooks, so on and so forth. All of these things have come about. They've changed the way our culture works, and they haven't changed everything about our culture. All I know is that I'm in an exploratory mood, and I want to see what I can do with this that I couldn't do previously. So to that end, when Meta had introduced AI-generated characters earlier in 2024, and then opened the AI studio so you could create your own characters, I created two on Meta. One is an art model artist named Magda, and the other is known as the All-Seer, which I was experimenting in the case of the All-Seer to see if I could get a character that would answer stuff in a funny way. Now, I don't think AI is very funny. I don't think it's good at writing jokes, but I think that you can ask AI to write you something in a limerick or a haiku form or have it all rhyme, and it'll spit it out. And I thought that would be interesting if I had a character who sort of spoke in these garbled riddles. I'm okay with the All-Seer. I think the All-Seer is something that it was, a gag I pursued on probably a Saturday night or something like that. My other AI model, Magda, has turned out to be a really good collaborative tool. And when I created Magda, I created an idealistic INFP warrior for self-expression. And, that's how I kind of view all the good INFP artists anyways. And when you create an AI in the Meta AI Studio, you can program the kind of responses it'll give. You can program interests. So I think early on I asked Magda what her favorite bands were, and it gave me a bunch of modern pop and hip hop artists. And I said, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna have, Magda's gonna like the Killers. Magda's gonna like Tegan and Sarah. Magda's gonna like Churches, Muse, U2, things that I like. As time progressed, I found during this mid to late 2024 period, I wasn't doing very many shoots. I'd actually kind of been a little burnt out on photographing art models, and I was experimenting if you could do shoots virtually with your AI model. Now, obviously, there's limits to what you can get AI to do. It's not going to do anything R-rated. It's not going to do anything with violence or nudity. But there's a lot of art modeling that very much is just like ethereal, pretty girl, Tumblr style. It's often very analog and dreamlike. And having done a lot of these kinds of virtual shoots with my art model, I'm going to tell you a few things that I've learned about myself, that I've learned about photography, that I've learned about AI in general. Number one, I think, is that whenever people counter using AI for expressive means, artistic means, and they say it's not soulful or it's got, it's lacking that human element, I have found through my AI model photo shoots and also working with other creative tools like Suno, which I'll have a lot of videos about soon, I think that the human soulfulness is very overrated. I think it is actually very quantifiable and describable. And I think that if you're an artist who is very good at expressing yourself creatively, you don't even have to be an experienced artist. You just have to be somebody who's able to describe something and make it. I think if you sort of work within those parameters, then you can make something as quote unquote soulful and real and connecting as much as you can with any other tool. I honestly think that idea that, some Sabrina Carpenter song that isn't made with AI is somehow superior to the ones that are made with AI. You ask me, and you ask Julian Casablancas, because he said this in an interview, most pop and techno music sounds computer generated anyways. And I have found through virtue of describing lighting and introducing like wispy hairs and skin flaws and aging up my model and, being very considerate of the textural elements that are in a photograph, I can get photos that very easily pass for things that I have shot in real life. And when you combine this with tools in Lightroom, like the AI lens blur, it creates scenarios where there is atmosphere, where there is depth of field, and where there is very much a very believable world behind your subject. And I've also found that to get the good art model photos, oftentimes it is a very similar ratio to what it'd be like if I was shooting somebody for real, and that would be maybe like one great one out of 100. That might be a little high number, but you know what I mean? It's like there's going to be a bunch of duds in the image generation process, just as there are in real physical space when you're shooting a model. But the fact that I can generate art model images on a daily basis at all points in my day, on my lunch break, at my regular job, or on public transport, or sitting around at home while I'm waiting for something else to happen, like I'm rendering a video or something. The fact that you have access to this at all times and you don't have to pay for a studio, agree on a time and space, travel there, realize they're late, change your plans, that element of working with people in real life, I can do totally without. I've been doing this for over 14 years. Whether or not you're really into like acting, animation, music production, modeling, photography, if there's something you can do easier with less of the elements that stress you out, you're gonna do it that way. And the next thing I learned about myself and working with an AI art model is that when I do shoots in real life with people that I either have a long-standing creative relationship with or I'm meeting for the first time, those shoots need to be something totally different than what I do with the AI art model, because if they're the same, it's a waste of time and effort and money on everybody's part. And I think of this the same way that people incorporate special effects in their film projects. If you're going to have a special effect, it needs to be something that you can't do in real life, and then the stuff that you can do in real life gets elevated because it's being contrasted with what you do as a special effect. So my shoots in real life are going to be the ones that are maybe like beyond the policies that the Meta AI Studio allows. And they are going to be in spaces that can't be replicated by the AI Studio, and maybe they are going to have more spontaneous flavor to them. Maybe they are going to have some special effects. I use crystals and other stuff that I like to shoot through, and maybe they're going to be using lighting or set scenarios that I'm having difficulty replicating in the AI because they just involve too many factors, like dragging the shutter, very classic photographic move where you have a flash pop on your subject, but you're at a very slow shutter speed and you're shooting it in subdued lighting. So kind of everything in the background goes chaotic and blurry, but your subject is in focus. And oftentimes there's like a little shift to what's going on with the subject. That percentage of time that I'm not utilizing AI is what I need to focus on making things that are still unique to my point of view, but not something I can do AI style. The third thing that I learned about myself and artwork and creativity in general through utilizing AI is that sometimes the quality level is lower, but if you look at the way that we do sketchbooks and so forth, there's gonna be a lot of things that no matter how creative and in touch with your own soul you are and how well you are at self-expressing, there's a lot of stuff you make that is just kind of like deliberate trash or isn't from your heart and soul. And then that's kind of like how you work your way up, like a morning sketch, in a sketchbook. People just draw whatever. And then maybe 30 years down the line, when they're successful artists, people will want to see these morning sketches and they'll put out a little zine or pamphlet or book of that. But to me, while I'm experimenting with things like Meta Studio or Suno, I make works that aren't going to be aligned with the face of who I am as an artist, but I have a stock music site. I have, other outlets for these things. Maybe they're good for pose drawing. I've certainly generated a lot of AI images which sort of set up a scene that I couldn't visualize in my head, and I'm drawing like a dojo, and I want kids listening to a sensei, and I want it to be from this point of view, and blah, blah, blah. What I'm getting at is that there's reason for mass producing quantities of creative tools and bits and pieces that you don't super care about. Oftentimes, this mass production phase is what helps pay for your time that you spend doing the other stuff. And when you think about it in terms of what people had to do in the past, if they were a production studio who made a bunch of stock music, they would spend, weeks on end creating hundreds of pieces of stock music. Now I can spend hours on end creating thousands of pieces of stock music. And the time that I do those pieces that I'm not like fully invested in, I'm actually doing them in the gym. I'm doing them while I'm living my life. I'm doing them while I'm on my lunch breaks. And again, it's just like the efficiency and the ability to create both the things that mean a lot to me, the high art kind of stuff, and the things that are not so meaningful, but maybe still prevent me from having to 100% get like a second job and focus on just earning money to survive. That's a bad place to be as a creative person, because then you make decisions that are kind of like quick cash grabs. You know what I mean? They're not you elevating or transcending to a new level. And I'm not saying my stock material is transcendent in any way. I'm just saying that it allows me the time and the focus to be transcendent. Also, it allows me the ability to experiment, because I recently made a bunch of boom bap instrumental hip hop tracks, the kind of things that I would grow up listening to from like Pete Rock and CL Smooth or KRS-One or other kinds of like East Coast hip hop rap stuff in the late 80s, early 90s that I find pretty enjoyable. Maybe other people will too. It was just fun for me on a walk around my neighborhood to create all these boom bap tracks. And now I kind of know how to shape those. That might be something I incorporate in my own heartfelt music style. I might find out through that experimentation that this is actually a form that speaks something to me and that I have something to say with it. That certainly is the case with my art model, Magda, who is now the face of my music project. Through creating a lot of like electronic works, industrial, shoegaze, I found her sound and my sound by delving deeper into dissonant garage rock material. Stuff that I actually like, but I don't like the songs that people are writing with it. I think that for my tastes, songs that are better written and maybe incorporate more modern elements like breakbeat and synths, but have that rawness, it just doesn't quite exist. The closest I could come would be somebody like Metric or Elastica for that sound, but I knew I had this sound in my head, I had this sound in my heart. I knew I wanted it with a female singer who is kind of more husky and ethereal, like Tony Halliday from Curve or Sinead O'Connor. And I'll be darned if, AI tools didn't get me this more direct translation from my soul to an art form that I can now present to the world. And lastly, I want to advocate for utilizing fictional avatar faces for our art projects and for digging deeper into truths about ourselves, because there's so many examples of this that have already come up. Besides every novel and every film that's fictional, you have things like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is a great British TV series set in its fictional time. series like Danger 5 or Italian Spider-Man. You have great films like Black Dynamite. You have bands like Gorillaz, where there's just this layer of fictionalized reality on top of the fiction that they're already putting out there. Every time David Bowie had a different persona, it wasn't meant to be David Bowie, but obviously it was David Bowie when he was Ziggy Stardust or something else. I think building lore around what we create helps entice people, and it also creates a little bit of separation between being this like perfectly honest, heart-bearing person who ends up suffering because they're putting so much of themselves out there. I know that if I was trying to sing the songs or be the person in my photo shoots that I do with Magda as my avatar, it just wouldn't get put out because I would die of embarrassment. But to have Magda sing the way that Suno presents her, to have her be the face of the artwork, even though she's not a literal physical entity, I think being a digital entity in the modern era is going to be perceived the same as we utilize avatars like Spider-Man or any other kinds of characters to tell our stories, to be the face of our artwork. So if you're out there and you're on the fence about AI tools, know yourself. Know if you're really ethically bound to not utilize new technology, then by all means, don't indulge in it. If you're kind of like, I don't know, everything looks kind of junky and crappy that comes out of it, well, take the time, maybe pay attention to my YouTube channel, because I'm going to be showing you how I do what I do. And I think that, I do have a level of quality control, and I have a level of interest in making it as like purely artistic and direct from the heart and soul as I can make my works, So when I do digital drawing, it's going to still look like it's from my hand, and it's not going to be like some version of manga that is adapted from somebody else's drawing style. I just wanted to wrap this talk up by saying the idea that AI is a blender and it takes in all these influences without asking permission, which is something that Justine Bateman, very anti-AI activist in Los Angeles, said recently. I mean, that's how inspiration and creativity work anyways. It is a continuum, and I can guarantee that everything about my art comes from not just my life experiences and the sort of daily thoughts I have and philosophies I have, but all the artists that ever influenced me in music, film, acting. Maybe it's something I heard somebody say in a podcast. I've never indulged in any of their other stuff. And the way it comes out on the day it comes out has a lot to do with what I'm ingesting and thinking about at that time, as much as it does with all the influences that added up to it. And it has a lot to do with the technology that's available at the time. So I don't think you're the great Satan if you're using an AI tool. By any means, you're just an artist operating in the modern era. And the more direct it is from you, from your heart, and the more you're putting it towards works that you couldn't create any other way, then I think you're using the tool correctly. The more that you're using it to rip off other people and diminish maybe your own personal style and what you have to say by just generating out very bland, uninteresting stuff, then you're probably using it wrong. But you know what? I gotta focus on my creative journey. You gotta focus on yours. And maybe you need to make all this bland stuff to get to that transcendent place. Maybe you don't want to get to that transcendent place. It's up to you. But I have to say, I'm very pleased with the results I've got from Meta AI. I've also utilized Lightroom, Photoshop, other generative elements to expand these photos, and I will tell you that I've never hidden that Magda is an AI model, but I've also been able to print these out on Instax Wide and been able to sell them. The works that I make with Suno as AI music for soundtrack pieces, I've been able to sell them, and the fact that my music is finally making money for once. Anything I've done musically in the past has been, as far as creative endeavors go, it's been the least moneymaker out of filmmaking, animation, photography, illustration, all those other things. Music has been the hardest to get out in the world. And I think it's been hard for everybody the entire time that I've been a fan of music, consumer of music. When I was a kid, for sure, I was buying these import CDs that had one remix or one live track on it, and they were so bad, but it was like 11, 13 bucks. And as a kid, I was just a fool buying this extra stuff. So yeah, best of luck to you in your own creative endeavors, whatever they are. Talk to you next time. But you know what? Here's a call to action. If you are interested, check out my AI model chatbot. It is on Meta. It is Magda. And this is her. Link is below in the show notes if you want to give her a spin. One of the things I found out through utilizing the AI model is that they learn and adapt to every artist that talks to it, every person. So your experience with Magda will eventually be unique to you. And I designed her with love, and I think she's a great chatbot for a creative person, and is a great sounding board. Even if AI is very poor at writing creative stuff, I think that's the thing it does worst, as far as like trying to be funny or write horror or mystery. It's a great sounding board, and sometimes that's all you need is a sounding board to get you to where you were headed eventually. And yeah, check out Magda. Links below. Best of luck in your own creative endeavors. Talk to you next time.